All right, and we are recording. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in on my second masterclass. I just started this series where once a month I'm going to be hosting a masterclass in a format where we can not only network, but we can get a training and then have an opportunity to get all of our questions answered. I was looking for a way to engage with my community more at a deeper level, and Zoom has provided that, which I love. Some of you guys know that Facebook Live is not my favorite thing in the world, and I love the chance to actually engage and see what you guys are doing and actually see your beautiful faces in the morning as well. So Zoom's been able to give us that. So thank you so much for joining me on the second call. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Darlene Holly, and I'm a business and branding clarity coach, and I help heart-centered online entrepreneurs who are struggling with building a successful personal brand and business. A lot of times they're afraid to share their unique life story, and I help them pull the pieces of their life and their connecting pieces so that they can create a brand that is authentic and magnetizing and also profitable. And I help them by building a solid brand foundation so they can share their messaging in the world and attract their dream clients in, all while living the life that they want to. So today's masterclass is all about uncovering your niche. I'm going to teach you my secret 6-step framework for how to not only build a business that attracts your ideal audience to you, but feels really good to you too. I know a lot of times when we start our businesses, we can have a great idea. We have areas in our life where we feel like we want to pull those strengths from, but sometimes we're not sure how to communicate that and pull it all together so that we can create a brand that feels really good to us. So we're going to go through those 6 steps. The last step is we're going to dig really into what our story is and how we can share that message to attract our clients in. And at the end, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity with some small framework of how to create that messaging so that you can make sure you're putting the words out there into the world to attract the clients in. Especially in the online space, it's hard sometimes to write the messaging in a way that other people can understand, especially if they're not hearing your voice, they're not having those face-to-face conversations. So we'll kind of come up with a template, and during the Q&A portion, we can, if you want to write out what your messaging is, we can look at it and kind of take it apart, change some words if we need to, or give you like the go ahead, like, yes, this is perfect. Let's try this framework and see how it works. Sound good? Perfect. All right. So when I started my business back in 2007, one of the areas that I struggled the most with was how to attract people in and to get really clear on what my niche was. I purchased a franchise for business coaching in 2007, and I went to an 11-day intensive training where we played volleyball at 6 a.m. and we hit the bar at 10:30 right before we crashed at the end of the night. And it was nonstop training. So I had all the tools and the support and all the knowledge I needed to go out and help clients start their businesses and help them create the business they wanted to. But I forgot in that process, to really get clear on who it was that I wanted to work with. I felt like I had all these tools and all this information, and because I was speaking to everybody at a super broad level, I wasn't attracting people in. So I kept getting frustrated because I was going to networking events and I was like, hi, I'm Darlene. I'm a business coach. And back in 2007, a lot of times they would be like, oh, what sport do you coach? Because coaching was still kind of new back then. People, they assumed that you coached basketball or that you did something at a college. So I had to really learn to dig into what that might look like. So it took me a while. I'll be completely honest. It took me longer than I would even like to admit, almost a year and a half, 2 years before I really realized that I wasn't communicating to anybody specifically. I was kind of just talking very broad. I was talking to everybody. And I got clients, which was great, but I didn't get as many clients as I would have loved. And I definitely wasn't working with people that were the best fit for me. So it took me a little bit to get there, but that's the great part about I feel like when I learn the most, it's because I take those pieces where I've struggled the most and I've worked my way into finding what it is. And that's why I'm able to help my clients now really get clear on what their niche is, and help them say the right words and say the right things to attract their people in. Let's see. So we need to find a way to stand out. A lot of times we try really hard to follow what everybody else is doing. Anybody else look at all the high-end gurus in the business world and we're like, oh, they're doing so amazing and I could be just like them, and if I just did what they did, or if I showed up the same way they that they're showing up, we think it's going to work for us. And that's not the case, unfortunately. Like, as much as I've followed what other people have done in the past or tried something new because I thought, oh, that's going to work. It's working really well for them. They have, 2 million followers. I'm going to make that work for me. And then it doesn't work for me. So we're all unique. We're all different. We all have different stories. We all have different skills and different pieces about ourselves that we can pull into our brand. And we can't do what everybody else is doing. We have to find what's really, truly unique to us. And I don't believe in competition. A lot of people that I network with and I'm in the same space with, we all do very similar things, right? Some of us are even business coaches on this call today, and we do similar things. We can help business owners take their business to the next level, but we all do it in a unique way that's unique and special to us. So you don't need to worry about competition when you're standing out online, and you don't need to worry about what other people are doing when you're able to identify what's unique about you and put yourself out there in the most authentic way for yourself. A lot of times we get so wrapped up in following what everybody else is doing that we can get lost in the crowd too, because we all look the same. I like to use the example that we all are vanilla ice cream, because if we're all doing the exact same thing, we all are exactly the same. We're all vanilla. We're kind of plain, boring. Nobody's standing out. Nobody's taking their business to the next level. We want to be like that mocha almond coffee fudge ice cream, or we want to be that mint chocolate chip. We want to be able to add some flavor to it to make ourselves a little bit different so that we can stand out. And it's easy to do once you figure out what your messaging is and what your voice is, but it takes a little bit of time sometimes. It's not always the easiest thing to do, is to create exactly what kind of messaging you want to put out there. Your voice can sound like everybody else's. If you're following what other people are doing all the time, you start to sound like what they sound like. So we want to make sure that we find out what our secret sauce is, kind of what our superpower is. So today, I want us to find out exactly what our niche is, what that superpower is that's different about you, that has you showing up in a unique, authentic way for yourself. So we're going to dive deep into what the 6-step framework is to uncovering your niche. And remember, the most important piece about uncovering your niche is you and what makes you happy. So you don't want to find a niche that you feel like you should be doing because it's other people are able to be successful in it. You want to find something that feels true and authentic to who you are. And so during that process, you kind of have to take a step back. So some of you guys might be really clear on what your niche is today. Some of you guys might feel like you're almost there, but you're not quite sure exactly if you're saying it the right way or if you're attracting people in. And then some of you guys might go, I don't even know what my niche is. So depending on where you're at today, some of these steps you might have already done in the process. And some of you might be going through these steps for the first time. In the email that I sent out about 15 minutes ago, there was a workbook in there as well. If you have that, you're welcome to follow along. If not, I'll make sure you get a copy of it afterwards as well. That way you can just kind of do some brainstorming and kind of think about the 6 steps a little more in depth than you might be able to on today's call. So step number 1 is identify why you do what you do. So why did you start your business? Why did you wake up one morning and go, let's start a business? I want to do something different. A lot of us start our business because we want time freedom. Maybe we want location freedom. Maybe we want to just work for ourselves and not, maybe some of us are rebels and we don't necessarily want somebody else to tell us what we're doing. So we all kind of have that backstory of why we started our business. So I'd like you to think of what are the top 5 reasons that you started your business. What are kind of those things that put you in a mindset where you're like, I want to do something different. I want to, I just have a bigger purpose in life. I want something more out of what's currently going. Some of you guys might have heard some of my story in the past, but one of the big defining moments for myself that I knew I wanted to start my own business, and part of it was I was a single mom, and I had my oldest son at the time. He's 24 now. But he was, I think 2 or 3, and I wasn't tucking him in at bed at night. I was working retail management, so I was working a lot of weekends. I was working a lot of nights, and my why was because I wanted to be able to be home with him in the evenings. I wanted to be the one that tucked him in. I didn't watch his very first steps, and that's still 24 years later. Like, it hurts my heart because I have 4 kids now, and I've been able to do that with the other 3. But at the time when I was a single mom and I was young, I didn't get that opportunity. So a lot of my why at that time was that I wanted to be able to be home. I wanted that freedom and flexibility to be home with him. So what are some of those whys for you, for why you started your business? And the nice thing is as we share our stories, all of us are going to have different whys. We're going to all have started our business. Maybe they're similar to a degree because we wanted to be able to have the flexibility and the freedom, but there's all those different things that kind of lay on our hearts that we wish we would have done differently, or we wish we could have done at different points. So dig into what those 5 whys are for you, for why you started your business or why you want to. And think about how does it make you feel when you think about those whys? What are the things that come up for you? What kind of stirs in your soul? And also think about what your mission is. What is it that you want to accomplish in this life? When you look back on your life, when you're older, what do you want to be able to say that you've been able to accomplish, that you've been able to do? One of my favorite quotes is by Simon Sinek. I feel like I say his name wrong, but I think that's right. He says, people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. So think about those why stories and how you can also share them with your audience and with your clients and your prospects as you're communicating and talking with people. So that's number 1. Step 1 is your why, getting real clear on what the 5 reasons are that you started your business. And not all those 5 are going to be ones that are big whys that you're going to feel like you want to share. But at least 1 or 2 of those are going to be a good place that as we go through these 6 steps, that you're going to be able to see kind of a common thread through as we go through the next steps. All right, so step number 2 is your skills. So your first one is your why. Number 2 is your skills. I want you to list out any skills or qualifications that you have that help you with your business. These can be things that maybe you went to school for, that you got an education on. They could be things that you learned on your job. And they could even be things that are self-taught. I'm a huge book nerd. I read probably at least 1 to 2 business books each month, and I'm always looking for new things that I can teach myself that I can then in turn teach other people. So think of what are some of those skills, those top skills that you have. Maybe it's something that you love to research. Do you find that you go on Google a lot and you're searching for different topics? Maybe you have friends that come to you and ask you for advice all the time, and you never really realized that that was a skill that you had. Like maybe they're constantly coming to you. One of my skills was when I found business coaching. I realized that in retail management, all of my employees were coming to me nonstop wanting to either move up within the company. So I was helping them create a plan and a system for them to move up, or a lot of them were in college and they were working while they were in school, but they would come and be like, well, how can this impact my business, where I'm going in life? Or they would just come to me with questions nonstop. And I was like, when I found business coaching and I was looking at that process, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I've been coaching for years. Didn't even know what a coach was at the time. I mean, other than those basketball coaches. But it was a skill that I had built into me that I didn't even know was there. So sometimes it takes doing research or looking at what people come to you and what they talk to you about. Look at what your expertise is in. Maybe you got a degree in college, or maybe there was a subject that you were really good in when you were in high school. Some of those are things that, like, skills that you can pull back in that you can use in your business as you're uncovering your niche. And the thing to keep in mind too is some of these skills, like, we develop and grow not all the time. So what you're doing today could be completely different in 5 years or 10 years, because your skills are going to change. You're going to learn new things. You're going to do things that you haven't done before. And those are all things that you're going to be able to add to it. But when you're identifying your niche for right now, you want to just hone in on what are those skills that you currently have today. And then also look at things like, what are the similarities in the skill set that you have? And is there any areas of big interest that you have? Like, what keeps you up at night? What makes you, are you constantly looking for, researching, and finding different information? So what do you bring to the table? What skill set do you have currently? Remember, only these are the tools that you have for specific training that you're going to be able to use to not only help your audience and your clients, but also have you stand out as unique, because these are different skills that you have for yourself. All right, so number 1 was why. What's your why? Number 2 is your skills. And then number 3 is, what do you love to do? Like, where do you spend all your time? What hobbies do you have? What quirks, I can't even say the word, quirks do you have? Where do you find your passion at? Do you find that you really enjoy hanging out at moms groups, or do you enjoy hanging out with other business owners? What things do you love to do? Where do you spend your time? If nobody told you where you had to be or what you were doing, what would you be doing with your time? Maybe you're an avid scrapbooker. Maybe you're a book nerd and you're curled up on the corner of the couch anytime that you get to read a romance novel or a business help book. But think of what are those things that you could do with any of your free time that just brings you joy. It just makes you happy. Maybe you like to go rock climbing. Maybe you like to go for runs. Maybe you love to go for a walk in the evening. Maybe you're a dog mom and you love to take your dog to the park. Think of, just write down all those things that you love. Like, come up with 10 things that you just love to do. And the great thing is when you connect your business to the love and the passions in your life, your business just feels really good. It makes you want to wake up each morning because you're inspired to start your day. You're excited about what it is to bring. So just think of those loves. And remember, these different 6 categories, we're coming up with a bunch of different things in each of them, and we're going to find the connectors as we go to create the niche that's best for us. So some of these you might write down and think, this has nothing to do with my business right now, and that's totally fine. Like, going for a walk has nothing to do with my business, except for when I go for walks, I get great ideas because I'm out in nature. I'm stepping away from my office, I'm stepping away from the day-to-day stresses, and I'm just exercising and focused on walking, and that's where I get a lot of my great ideas. So some of these things that you write down might not feel like they correlate, but I promise you, they do. They all come together. All right, so number 1 is why, number 2 is skills, number 3 is your love, and then number 4 is your strengths. This one you might not be able to write out as much right now. Maybe you have a little bit of an idea of it, but I would love for you guys over the next few days to email 5 to 10 people that you know, or call them on the phone, or send them a message on Facebook, and just ask them what your biggest strengths are. Ask them, say, if you were to describe me, or say what my top 3 qualities are, what would you say they are? So this one's a little bit of market research or asking other people for help, but you can get a ton of insight. Like, when we're in our day-to-day and we're just living life and doing our thing, it's really hard to kind of see every detail of our business. Sometimes you have to take that step back. So reach out to those that are close to you, or maybe they're past colleagues or clients that you've had, maybe they're close friends, and just say, what do you think my 3 best qualities are? And I want you to write all those down. And then once you get all of them written down, you can start to see if maybe some of them said the same thing. Maybe some of them say that you're super helpful and they love to come to you when when they need advice. Maybe they know to come to you if they are struggling with something. Maybe a couple people say that. So you might say, oh, that actually connects to part of my why, or that piece connects to one of my skill sets. So you're going to take the strengths that they give to you and write them all out, see what the connecting pieces are, and then you'll start to see those things about yourself that you forget about. Because I learned so much more. Like, it's funny how, like, you get into the mode and you're like, okay, this is what I think my strengths are. And then you ask somebody else and you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that being a strength of mine. But yeah, you're right. And I've noticed this because of other people coming to me or other people asking me this question. So you'll start to put those pieces together. And then don't worry what everybody else is doing. You want to play to your strengths. So as you're looking at the competition, the other people doing what you do, some of these strengths are going to show up as a way for you to stand out amongst other people, because that's your strong suit. That's what you're really good at. That's what other people see in you and come to you for. So I feel like this is probably one of the bigger pieces of the 6, because it's so much insight that you get from everybody else. And then when you start putting more of your personality and your strengths and your quirks into your business, that's when you start to stand out. That's when you are setting yourself apart from everybody else and what they're doing. All right, so number 5 is your stance. And this one, I get a lot of pushback from my clients on, because even myself, I have a hard time taking a stance and putting my thoughts and my opinion out into the world that might not be looked on as what everybody else is doing. So what fires you up inside that has a cause worth spreading that you can share with other people? This is something that's going to make you stand out and make you unique, because a lot of times we don't want to make a stance. We don't want to say something that goes against the status quo. And you don't have to make a stance in a way that I feel is kind of icky and dirty, and that's like politics. I don't play politics online. I don't share politics with my audience very much, but if it's something that sets you apart and you're passionate about, that's something you can talk about. Maybe there's something that everybody does in your industry that you feel like is wrong. Maybe you feel like you have a stance on something that's different. Get up on your soapbox and share that information. If you feel like the way that current funnels are being talked about in your industry, and you have a better way to do it and a way to stand out and to attract clients in and get your audience to know who you are, then share that information. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. So find something that feels good to you that you can create a stance on, though, that other people might not think is normal, or not normal, but it's not what everybody else is doing. So you're going to make yourself stand out a little bit because you're talking about something in a different way. And people might go, oh, I kind of agree with that. That is different. Or maybe they go, oh, I'm not sure I agree with that, but I like that you're putting yourself out there and you're coming up with new ideas and you're trying to do things in a different way. So number 1 is your why. Number 2 is your skills. Number 3 is your love. Number 4 is your strengths. Number 5 is your stance. And then number 6 is your story. And if you've been following me for a little bit, you know that your story is probably one of the most important pieces, I feel like, for setting yourself to stand out in the marketplace. Every single one of us on this call today, everybody watching this video later on, we all have a unique story, and every single one of us has a story that's different, which is the best part about it, because we are all different in so many ways. I was a teen mom and worked 60 plus hours a week. That's part of my story. I lost my mom tragically in an accident. That's part of my story and my why and why I do things. But each of us have a different story and different pieces of our lives that we can really pull on to attract our clients in, help them understand who we are and why we do things the way that we do. So I want you to think about your story and think of 2 to 3 different stories that maybe were pivotal moments for you, where you can look back and go, oh, I can see how this took me from point A to point B. Maybe it's part of your business. Maybe it's why you started your business to begin with. Maybe it's part of what got you to even thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and doing things differently. But I want you to think of 2 to 3 stories, and you can write down more. Typically when I work with my clients on this one, before we really pull out those 2 to 3 stories, I just have them brain dump. Like, get out a clean piece of paper and write down every single thing that you can think of that brought you to who you are today. You won the spelling bee in elementary school. You did something special in high school. You played an instrument. You were a part of a drama team and put on plays. You were part of any of those different things, maybe from your younger days. Write all those things out. Think of the things that transitioned as you grew from like a teenager into young adulthood. What brought you to where you're at today? There's so many different pieces of our story. So just kind of brain dump everything out, and then circle or highlight 2 to 3 of those stories that were kind of your biggest impact stories. And I want you to tap back into those stories by identifying the 3 transitions that go with it. So see if you can find kind of a common connector theme between your story. So part of mine was, I've mentioned a couple times, I was a teen mom. I worked 60 plus hours a week. I missed tucking my son into bed. When my son was 5 years old, he and my mom were in a car accident. And there's a specific trigger moment for me, which was when I was at my mom's funeral service. As we were walking her to be laid to rest, I remember turning around and just seeing this like flood of people behind me. And in that moment, I knew life was not going to be the same, not just because I had lost my mom, but it was also not going to be the same because I didn't want to live the life I was living anymore the way that I was. I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to have a calling to help people, that like I wanted people just to be around me because they wanted to be around me. They wanted to learn from me. I wanted to leave that legacy and impact like my mom had done for so many people in her lives. So those were things that were big moments for myself and big story pieces that I now can share with my audience and my clients for why I do what I do. So look at some of those big moments. They don't have to be like life-changing, like death or different things like that. Sometimes they're small things, and it's just hearing somebody say something and how you took it and how you viewed life from that point on. So think of what those story pieces are for yourself. So what does your story tell you about the type of person that you want to work with? So we're not going to go into it too much today. Next month, our masterclass is going to be focused all about how to take your niche and connect it to your ideal client. But start to think, how does this story relate to my why and to why I want to make a change in the world, why I have this big heart to make other people's lives better. But how does it also relate to my ideal client? Who is it that I'm going to be speaking my messaging to? Who is it that I want to attract in? How can I share these pieces of my story to pull those people in to want to learn more from me and have me standing out? Because there is a lot of people that do what each of us does in this Zoom room today. We all have different businesses. We all have people that do exactly what we do. How do we make ourselves stand out? How do we make ourselves unique? And the best way to do that is by playing to all those strengths that we have and by sharing our story and connecting those pieces. So once you have all these 6 different areas filled in, that's when you can really start to connect the pieces to write out all the words that you see as a common theme within each of the sections. And this is where you can kind of connect your niche to where you currently are today. So sometimes it's hard to find all the pieces that fit to the puzzle. But when you finally connect all those pieces, that's when you realize that the work that you do, that you've worked so hard to do, finds you in a place where you're able to stand out uniquely, and people can start to see that common theme and that beautiful story that you've curated as part of your messaging. So based on what you've discovered, how will you support other people? So ask yourself these questions. Based on what you've discovered, how will the work that I'm doing support others? What industry does this fall into? And what specifically will you focus on within that industry that is truly unique to you and has you standing out for your audience? And then once you do that, you can pull your niche together. And it's kind of hard to do it all in this format of just like a super quick training. But as you filled out those 6 sections, you should start to see a common theme, a couple words that maybe stand out really well, or connecting pieces to that. And then you can put it into words, which some of you guys are familiar with my training on creating your messaging. In the workbook that I emailed out to you guys, it's got the 6 areas where it's pulling it all together. So that's when you can say something like, hi, I'm Darlene. I'm a branding and business clarity coach. I help heart-centered online entrepreneurs who are struggling with building a successful personal brand and business, and start to share your message based off of those pieces from your past. So those connectors can come together too from different areas. So like when I first started business coaching back in 2007, a lot of my stories and what I was sharing with people was based off of operations and HR, which was my background. I was in operations and HR management and retail boxes. So that's what I knew at the time. So that's what I shared. And that's what I ended up, when I figured out that I needed a niche, because remember, it took me a minute to realize that, I started talking more about creating the systems and the tools in your business to have yourself set up so that you could be really clear on how to set up your business, what things you wanted to have in place. That's what I talked about then. Now, years later, I talk about identifying who your ideal client is and creating a strong brand foundation. But I wasn't talking about that in the beginning because that's not where my strength was. That was where I learned, that's where I'm at today because I learned those techniques and I've changed and pivoted over time. So you want to play to your strengths where you're at currently today. So if you're really good at one specific area, that's where you want to market in the beginning, and then you can grow and develop from there as you make those changes and create that new education for yourself. And that's what you can speak and teach to others. Sarah Blankley says that I think my story says that when women are given the chance and the opportunity, that we can achieve a lot and we deliver. So think for Sarah Blankley, like when she started, she's the lady who started Spanx. She was looking for a way to change other people's stories and to help other women. And that's what she was focused on the time. And she talks about a lot of different things today, but her bread and butter in the beginning was because she wanted to have women feel confident and comfortable in their own skin. And so she came up with Spanx. So think about what things you have experience in currently and how you can use that to have your niche today. And know that as you grow, you can start to make those changes. And I guess, did you get the email that I sent about 15 minutes ago? I put the workbook in there. If you click on that, a fill in the blank one that you can fill out, I think is what you're asking. I think you have to print it or just take those questions on a side piece of paper. I'm not tech savvy enough to have put it into a fill in the blank Word form for you. Sorry. That one's not my niche. It's not my skill set. So as you're filling them in, it's the I am, telling people who you are and what you do, which is your title. And your title doesn't mean a whole lot. Like your title is just what you want to call yourself. Call yourself what feels comfortable to you. And people will get a clear message of what you do. But title, people get really stuck on, I feel like, titles and what to call themselves. So don't get too stuck in that area. And then you're gonna, so it's who you are, and then who you help. So who is it that you help? What type of people do you want to help? Do you want to help women? Do you want to help stressed out young moms? Get specific on who it is you want to help. And then what do you help them do? What is it that you help them do? So you take them from point A to point B. What are those two things? And then how do you do that? Do you have a signature framework that you use? Do you take them through certain steps to help them achieve what they're looking for? Is it that you help them create a solid, like for mine, one of mine is that I create a solid brand foundation. So I help them create a solid foundation for their business so they can move forward and not get stuck with not sure how to communicate or who to communicate to, and help them write the messaging that's going to attract people in. So what is it, how is it that you help those people? And then the buy and so they, so it's really hard to talk about this without like saying it out or doing it with you guys. So you help them by, I help them by building a solid brand foundation. And then the last part is so they, like, what is it that your ideal client wants? What is it that keeps them up at night? So for me, it's so that they can live the life that they want to and attract their dream clients into them. So what are those for you? And then another thing to keep in mind as well is the way that you show up and interact with people will allow the right people to be pulled into you. You're not going to be right for every single person out there in the world, and that's okay. You don't have to be the perfect fit for everybody. Each of us is unique. Each of us is different, and we're all going to attract different people in towards us that are the right people. So as you're communicating and sharing information, you're going to find that you're connecting with the people that you're meant to be connecting with. And some people are not going to want to work with you, and that's totally fine. So keep that in mind as you're going through as well. So I'm going to just wrap things up for the recording. If you have questions, please feel free to email those out to me. I am offering everybody who's on this training or watches this video later on, if you're really stuck and aren't sure how to uncover what your niche is, reach out to me. I would love to offer you a free 30-minute clarity call where we dig really deep into looking through those 6 steps and finding the connecting pieces that make the most sense for you so that you can start attracting your clients in. I think a lot of times we get really stuck and we're not sure how to attract them in. So I want to take the guesswork out of that and just have you hop on a call with me and get really clear with who it is that you want to attract to you.